Thank you, Moderator. Dorothy Anderson, the Chair of the Trustees of the Housing and Loan Fund. At the risk of this seeming more like an episode of a popular quiz show than a report to the General Assembly, I want to ask you if you know what these have in common: the cost of living crisis, presbytery mission plans, pastoral care, climate change, and the Prime Minister.
Which one?
The answer is, of course, the Housing and Loan Fund. Other reports to the Assembly, other facets of the life and work of the Church cover these topics too, but in the work of the Housing and Loan Fund, they come together. For all of these, in some way or another, and sometimes more obviously and significantly than at others, have a bearing on what the fund does. The fund's full name is the Church of Scotland Housing and Loan Fund for Retired Ministers and Widows and Widowers of Ministers, which is a bit of a mouthful. But despite the length of its name, and despite there being more people in the class of beneficiaries than even that name suggests, the fund's core purposes remain simple. They are to provide houses or loans for the purchase of houses so that people may make homes to live in their retirement. That has always been and remains the main work of the fund. However, in carrying out their work, in setting the parameters within which they operate, the staff and the trustees of the fund regularly take into account fluctuations in the property market, changes in interest rates, inflation and fuel prices, and how these are likely to affect the tenants of and borrowers from the fund. Last year's events in Ukraine and at Westminster made consideration of those matters more challenging and more urgent than is sometimes the case. The expected impact of presbytery mission plans and the ways in which churches are emerging still from the effects of COVID lockdowns, and whether those have accelerated or delayed ministers' retirement plans, also have a bearing on the work of the fund and how it plans for the future. That said, though we do keep our eyes on the wider world and take cognizance of developments within the Church, most of the work of the fund is routine. Routine, that is, in the sense of ordinary, normal, even predictable, rather than suggesting it is mundane, uninteresting, or tedious, for it is never those things. The appendices to our report give you the facts and the figures, the statistics about the work we do. Even though it didn't feel like it at the time, last year appears to have been a quiet year. But already this year, we have had 25 inquiries, we have bought 5 properties, and there are another 7 people house hunting or about to start house hunting. Behind every property transaction, every tenancy and every loan, every decision on interest rates, we are very aware of the people who have turned to the fund for help with their housing needs. Whether we are determining if an applicant falls within a house to rent or a loan category, considering a request for a move to a more suitable property occasioned as a result of changed circumstances, or deciding whether or not we should increase rents, we are mindful of the folk affected by our decisions. We remember who they are. Whilst there are guidelines and regularly reviewed parameters which provide a framework for the trustees and create a level playing field for those who approach the fund, we never forget that applicants and beneficiaries are individuals, human beings with human needs, unique, complex, infinitely varied, with different expectations, requirements, and situations, each and every one made in the image of our diverse and wonderful God. The housing and loan staff are the people most involved in supporting, caring, and helping those who approach the fund, and the trustees are grateful to them for the compassion, professionalism, care, and empathy which they bring to their work. We are not the only ones who appreciate what they do, as the quotes on the screens testify. We are grateful to the Law Department and the General Treasurer's Department too for the help and support they give to the fund as it does its work. On the topic of staff, we are pleased that this past year the property assistant, Selina MacArthur, has been able to increase her hours so providing more administrative and practical help to Hilary Hardy, the property manager, and helping streamline the fund's work. We can also report that Mark Lermonth began work as our project manager in February this year. He is tasked with two related matters. The first is to take a more proactive approach than has been possible in recent years to the maintenance and improvement of our stock of tenanted properties. And the second is to improve the energy efficiency of those houses. Together, these will make the houses more comfortable places for those who occupy them, should help with fuel bills, and will play a part in the Church's net zero agenda. With over 180 houses, it's not going to be possible for us to do it all at once. But equally, because it is going to take a while, it is important to get started. Although it's not yet a legal requirement, it seems likely that in the not too distant future, as landlords, we will be required to get all our properties to Energy Performance Certificate Level C or above, and the work the project manager is heading up will get us on the way to achieving that. His work is part of the strategic review of the fund, which was mentioned in our report to last year's Assembly. We had hoped that the review would have been completed by now. Whilst it is well underway and many hours have been spent on it, it has turned out to be not quite so straightforward as we had imagined. Accordingly, at this stage, I can simply report that progress is being made and that we expect to be able to report more fully in 2024. This means, alas, that Alan McCafferty, one of our trustees, will not see this matter through to fruition as he now comes to the end of his service as a trustee of the fund. We thank him for all that he has brought to the fund's work and deliberations over the years of his service. Assuming the Assembly accepts the second section of our deliverance, we look forward to welcoming the Reverend Dawn Lang as a trustee and to her contributions to our work. Finally, Moderator, I want to mention the Baird Trust. When the Housing and Loan Fund was established in 1969, the Baird Trust was instrumental in getting it going, providing £25,000 to help set it up. That's around 27% of the initial funds. Since then, as required by our Constitution, some of the Baird Trust trustees have also been trustees of the Housing and Loan Fund. We are grateful to them for what they have contributed over the years, not least to the current representatives for the wisdom, insight and skills they bring and readily share. As some of you may know, the Baird Trust was established in 1873, meaning that it is 150 years old this year. We congratulate them on their sesquicentenary and thank them in particular for their stalwart support of the work of the Housing and Loan Fund. Moderator, I present the report, and as I am not a commissioner, I would ask the Principal Clerk to move the deliverance.
I so move.
Seconded. Thank you. Thank you, Convener. Any questions? I don't have any list of any questions here. Being no questions, then we move to the sections of the deliverance. Section 1, is that approved? And online? Section 2, is that approved? And online? And the deliverance as a whole? And approved. Your deliverances have gone through very quickly, but that does not mean that we do not highly respect the work you do. And many ministers I know who have retired have been grateful for the pastoral care and practical support you've given them in finding the next chapter of their lives, and their spouses also. So thank you very much, and thank you to your committee.